Alright, here's the game plan. This is going to be our first Zerg video, and we're going to be doing something kind of similar to the Marines, but a bit more complex because we'll need gas, where we're trying to max out on basically one unit type. So a few understandings we're going to need to have here. One is Zerg works a little differently. Rather than have like unit producing buildings like the barracks, all our units are produced by our main base. Our main base produces larvae at regular intervals, and we can turn that larva into any unit we want, presuming we pay the cost for that unit. This includes overlords, which are these little floaty dudes that are the same as supply depots. We'll be producing the thing that gives us more supply out of our main base, which is our only production building. To open up new things to produce, we need to build buildings associated with them. This build, we're going to be maxing out on roaches, so we're going to build fairly soon a roach warren, and then we're going to build a whole lot of roaches. So the basic idea is because each base produces larvae, we need a bunch of bases to produce a bunch of units. So we're going to take 3 bases pretty early. We're going to build a spawning pool, which allows us to make zerglings, which we won't be making right now, though you should if you wanted to turn this into a ladder build. May talk about that later. We'll have our spawning pool, which unlocks queens. Queens are the equivalent of orbital command for Terran, or like they're the analogy. Queens have a bunch of abilities, much like orbital command, and the most important one, like how mules are so important for Terran resource gathering, is inject larvae, where one queen at each base on a set cycle can inject larvae into the base, which means the base will produce more larvae that cycle, and we can produce way more stuff if we're good about injecting our bases. So our basic cycle is going to be produce whatever we're producing right now from our base, and then inject all our bases. And that's going to be a lot of what we do. Other things we're going to build, we're going to take our gas, because we're going to need gas to produce roaches. We are going to build a spawning pool, because we need that to make queens. We are going to build a roach warren. At some later point, you can unlock new tech by upgrading your base. So our main base, we're going to upgrade with, I think it's a lair, which opens up new stuff. And we're eventually going to build a hydralisk den, because roaches are a ground-to-ground only unit, and if our first max-out wave failed, we would want to be able to support with something that can hit air, and the way we're going to do that is hydralisks. They're a unit that combines pretty well, and our tech is ready to support them. We're also at some point going to grab an evolution chamber. This is equivalent to the engineering bay for Terran, though I don't think I actually did any builds that got an engineering bay that I've shown yet. Shh. But this is a building that gives upgrades to our units, and we're going to be upgrading roach attack +1 to help our attack do a little better. So we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff. This is going to be clearly more complicated than the Marine build, but unlike the Marine build, we're mostly just going to be producing things. The Marine builds, you have to keep adding barracks to make enough. Here, we're going to add a few support structures, but mostly we'll just be producing. The other thing to note is when we produce for Terran, I would press 1 for command centers and then S for SCVs. Here, when we activate our, or when we're controlling our command center, or in this case our hatchery for Zerg, we press S to then be telling it what to do with our larva, and then we're going to press D to make drones, or V to make overlords, our supply depots, or R to make roaches. So 1SD, 1SV, 1SR are our standard kind of hand movements. This is going to mean your APM will be higher doing this just because you're pressing buttons much more to do things. Which feels cool if you're chasing APM. We shouldn't be chasing APM, but it still feels kind of cool. All right, let's start and see how we do. We're going to be playing against the very easy AI, and I put them on economic focus just so they don't interrupt anything we're doing. This build could certainly beat a lot stronger AI levels than this, but this way they won't kill anything, which means we'll get a truer max out time. Our goal is 730. That's what the high-level player who made the video I'm basing this on did. My record is 736, and my practice run where I screwed up a lot of things, I did 830. If you can get 12 minutes your first try, if you haven't played much or any Starcraft, you're doing good, and then try to lower it. So we're going to start. Why am I Terran? I'm not supposed to be Terran. All right. While we're Terran, nope. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause, and we're going to come back shortly, and I'm going to be Zerg. Apology. All right. I think we're back. So we'll be starting up a game. You're a Zerg. My bad. I'm so good at this video making shenanigans. Yeah, so we'll be playing Zerg. And really, our only hotkey besides army is going to be 1. You can use the other hotkeys to look at other stuff, but 1 is going to be our main hotkey, unlike Terran. Because we can do so much of what we can do is out of our production center, is out of our hatcheries. We're going to saturate 3 bases. We got to take a lot of bases to make a lot of larvae. A good follow-up would just to be making another base in your base to make more larvae. That is a completely reasonable thing to do as Zerg. So I'm matching our production, and we're going to make a drone. I'm going to hotkey our hatchery. I'm going to have our overlord go scout, and I'm just going to be pressing 1 SD. But we're at 15, so I'm actually pressing 1 SV. Sorry, 13, because this is a good time to make our first overlord. I'm going to send our first overlord over to the right side of the map. And we're going to be making drones up to 16. The exact time doesn't matter that much, though. I'm waiting for the overlord to pop. It'll head off when it does. There it goes. And now we're up to 16. At 16, we're going to grab a guy, and we're going to head out, and we're already going to be expanding. Because Zerg really needs the production of having multiple hatcheries. And you can see this lines up pretty well. We're going to hotkey that, queue it here. Why are these going here? What happened? I don't know why they went there. Oh, I did a stupid queue. Okay. Ignore that. That was dumb. We're at 18. At 18, we're going to grab a guy, and we're going to build a spawning pool. It costs 200, so I pulled a little early, but this is when, generally around now, we want to make our spawning pool. And we're then going to grab a gas at 17. Now we're going to get back to making drones. The next 2 can be drones, and then we'll make another overlord just to make sure we don't get supply cap. We're producing drones, so I'm just pressing 1 SD over and over and over again. And we're gonna... Oh, our units become buildings. They morph into buildings, so we need to move 3 workers over. We're continuing to produce. When this finishes, when the spawning pool finishes, we can make a queen at our main. So we are saving up enough minerals at this point that we will be able to produce a queen. We can now make a queen here and a queen here. And we're going to have all our guys go to the second base because our first base is saturated. And we're just producing stuff. And at this point, we're going to actually go take our third. We're going to make sure to keep producing. And that's going to get us enough larvae to play as we're intending to play. So we're really going to want to go up to 3 bases. Zerg needs more bases than others. And we're back to producing larvae. I may as well producing drones. I may as well produce 1 overlord in here. We're going to take another gas at some point. Now that we have a queen, we hit the queen, we press V, and we click on the base, and that will inject our base and give us more larvae. I'm going to try to get this out of here so it doesn't die. The opponent's an idiot, so it won't, but it should. And we're going to take 2 more gases. And our queens can chase off enemy Zerglings, so we shouldn't worry too much about that. We're going to make sure to keep injecting. And we're going to make sure to keep producing drones. We're going to have a lot of drones. We're going to populate our new thing. We're going to have stuff back to here because we're no longer saturated. We're going to start saturating this. We're going to grab an evolution. We're going to make sure we're getting overlords as well. I'm going to grab an evolution chamber, BE. Nope, not BE. It's VE. Nope, it's B. I think we can't get it yet. My bad. All right, we're going to keep producing drones. I lost focus there for a moment. Keep producing. Let's make some more overlords as well. Let's make sure we have a queen at our third. We want queens everywhere. We're going to make sure we're producing here. And I'm going to send from our first base a bunch of guys over to our third. and we're going to make sure we're still producing, and I'll have all from there go over here. We still have too many here. And I am not being very quick, so we're going to keep producing, including an overlord in there. We're going to make sure we get our injects. This has not been an amazing showing, but that's okay. We can now start injecting our third as well. And at this point, we're probably about ready to start making roaches. So I'm going to put our roaches to go here. And I forgot to make a roach warren. So BR for roach warren. And we're also going to upgrade our main base into a lair, which gives us access to things. Now, we can make an evolution chamber. No, that's spawning pool. I didn't want to make that. Wait up. V. Alright, so I'm way behind on everything. We can't make the roach warren yet. I don't really need more drones. So I've screwed this up pretty badly. You can see our mineral count is exploding. So I'm going to make a few more overlords in advance so that when we're ready, we can just pump out a ton of stuff. Given that we're so overstocked, I'm just going to make another hatch here so it can produce more, and a queen eventually to affect it. We're going to get a boost attack for our roaches at our thing, and we're going to start pumping out roaches. And we're going to have all our hatcheries sent to here. I'm going to get the overlords out of the way, have them sort of somewhere on the map. Let's send this guy over here. That doesn't matter. We're going to make sure we're injecting. God, I'm doing a terrible job. I should have done more practice for this. And we're making roaches. And that's 1 SR to make roaches. We have upgraded our main base, which means we can now make, if we want, we could make a hydralisk den, and I'm going to, even if we won't be using it for our max out. I'm going to make sure to make some more overlords, because we're almost capped. So you can see I did a really bad job of spending our resources consistently. I'm going to make another queen to inject our fourth base. Inject, roaches, couple overlords, more roaches, and we're just pressing 1, and we're trying to make roaches. You can see our queen went to fight that. Queens are good at fighting. If you've been missing injects, you can just kind of pile up injects. I've been a little slow, but not that slow. We're going to need to make, I guess, probably 2 more overlords and then all roaches. See, I'm definitely not going to max out at 730, but we're not so far behind despite my many screw-ups. We're going to make sure we're injected at every base. You can, if you just grab a lot of units, it'll always prioritize the queen. So it will help you get out. It will let you inject if you just press V, no matter how many you have. And we're at max. All right, that was pretty good, actually. And you can see there was lots of possible improvements in what we did. So we're injecting. And making sure we're full on injects. We may as well get another boost. Let's get missile attacks level 2. And our army is going across the map. We could probably rally our units here, just to join the attack when they finish. And we're going to easily win this encounter because our roaches are good. But as units die, we'd probably reinforce with hydralisks. Because we do want to be able to hit air at some point. I'm going to peel off a few to go check the second base and the third base, or the third and fourth base, just in case they did those. I should have had other stuff scouting them. We're having no deaths, so I can't really make more units. What else could we do in the meantime? We could make another evolution chamber, BV, right? And that could be more upgrades. We can make sure to get injects. This is the main macro cycle, but not the only macro cycle. We'll talk about something else in a sec. The other thing we can do with queens that's really important is we can spread creep tumors. And if we put this on the map, and then come back even, then this creep tumor will build. Why are you over here? Um, and it will have an ability that can drop more creep tumors, and creep lets our units move faster. I should finish the attack. But also, not only does it let us move faster, it gives us vision. Anywhere with creep, we have vision. So it can drop another creep tumor, and if we had been doing this, we could have been spreading creep tumors around the map, and that would have been a nice thing to do. Let's get our injects, because it gives good vision. And you can see this tumor will now soon have an ability to drop another tumor. Man, we have so many resources. I did not keep up well. Um, there's a few, so we can drop another creep tumor. So I'm going to actually pull back because I want to show one other thing with roaches, which is we can turn a few of them into ravagers. This costs money. They go into eggs. It takes slightly more supplies, so we couldn't make many. And they come out as ravagers. Ravagers are units that we can make with roaches clearly, and they're these big guys, and they can launch this corrosive bile attack that comes down and hits targets for decent damage, and it's a useful move. These are useful units. We'll surely get more into them later. Anyways, we won. We have too many resources left. Uh, what was my time? 751? It really is quite respectable for how much I messed this up. Yeah, so the point is just this is another constant production practice. And yeah, trying to max out as fast as you can on 3 bases. I did get a fourth, but it was just because my minerals were ballooning. And note, it wasn't even for mining, it was just so I could produce more larvae faster. And this is, I think, good practice as Zerg, is you can often just take extra bases in your main base just for the increased production. So I thought I got 751. I got 750. Nice, solid score. Again, if you can do this under 12 minutes your first try, this is about a minute faster to max than the Marine max, but we're also doing more things. We have to get gases. I ended up getting 4 gases, which I think is a good number here. We have to do our injects. There's a little more going on, and I also forgot how to construct my evolution chamber. We're also getting an upgrade here, an evolved missile attacks, which is a boost to our damage. We had to get the spawning pool to get the queens. We got our roach warren so we could make roaches. You could get these upgrades, but they're honestly not amazing. Burrowing roaches I don't think does a ton, and movement speed is not that important for them. So I think it's much more important to try to get +1 attack. And if you were going to get more stuff, you'd be getting +1 defense, which would be C here. I got Hydralisk Den late just so if our army died, we could reinforce with a ranged unit that can hit air. That's basically it. I think this is a fun build to practice. Again, my mineral count completely exploded. I did not keep this under control. You can definitely do it substantially better. But it's a fun practice. Here's a Hydralisk. This is what a Hydralisk looks like. And it can hit air, which is great. Yeah, I think that's everything. So Zerg is fun. I like the larva mechanic. It feels very different to play than Terran, which is cool to have these things that function so differently. And yeah, this would be if you're practicing to start getting good. One thing you could do if you wanted to make this harder, though you will start doing this whenever you do other builds, so I think this is a good start, would be practice spreading creep whenever you have spare time. But that will start coming into, if we do further Zerg builds, that will certainly be a part of them. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think the main things to worry about are constantly producing, remembering to include overlords to not get supply blocked, and remember to inject regularly with your queens. That's really the key. And the production buildings we need spawning pool to get queens. We need our roach warren to get roaches. I was late on the roach warren, so when I had finished making workers, I should have been ready to start making roaches, and I had a delay there because of that screw up. It ended up not screwing up my final time that long because I still had those larvae and they could make roaches, but you want to get the roaches out earlier. That was a serious mistake. And we do want an evolution chamber at some point so that we can get attack +1. It's nice if you include that. If you forget, that's the most okay thing to forget. And for sort of playing as if it was a real game, a useful thing to do is upgrade our main base with lair so that we can get a Hydralisk den shortly after, or Hydralisk whatever, to make Hydras. Um, because very much how it works is your main base can make these things, and as we build other structures, that adds to what the main base is allowed to make and changes it. And Hydralisks get helped by we got attack +1 for roaches, but that's ranged attack +1 for ground units, which also affects Hydralisks. And if we had gotten armor for roaches, that would also be armor for Hydralisks. And Hydralisks cover roaches' main weakness, so it makes sense to have them as a transition. I don't think we'd want to switch from like 200 supply of roaches to 200 supply of Hydralisks. We probably want a mix, but it means if my units had started dying, I would have replaced them for a while with Hydralisks. And yeah, I think that's everything on this. Good macro practice for Zerg. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for Protoss, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. This Marine one was one I had found years ago on a previous version of Starcraft. This Roach one is one I found for this version of Starcraft, but I haven't seen a Protoss like macro drill practice. So what we're probably going to do is just make Mass Stalker, which is the most kind of basic unit that can hit ground and air that we can get with Protoss, and we'll learn how Protoss's basic macro mechanics work. Because with Terran, it's orbital command and making mules. With Zerg, it's get a spawning pool so you can make queens and do injects. And with Protoss, it's something else. And I've never really used that thing before, so I'll have to figure out something that's good practice so that I can get, used to doing it too. As you can see here, I am significantly less comfortable on Zerg mechanics than Terran mechanics. Not that I'm like good at either. I would like to eventually be a better Zerg player, but this was my start there, or this is my practice for Zerg that I'll hopefully get better at, and we will do one shortly for Protoss. Hopefully the dog next door isn't ruining your ears. Good day.